702. Let's walk the talk. 702.
Weird and wonderful.
Savvy the Monk is my guest. We continue our conversation around religion and spirituality. And I call him Spuda the Monk. Spuda the Guru. Listen, I want you to listen to something. Martin Kay has just written me a very, very interesting message connected to the comments we were making in the previous hour around the poor. And so Martin says, Aubrey, there are people who want to improve the conditions of the poor. But then there are those who want to remove the very condition of poverty itself. Huh? I mean, that's beautiful stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's separating the boys from the men here, right? Talk to me about that. Apropos the conversation around religion and spirituality.
To improve the conditions of the people. Yeah, the conditions of the people are on many levels. And when we discuss the issue of poverty, generally it relates to what's your economic situation, what's the bank balance. But that is just one almost superficial level of poverty or richness when we discuss the human condition. There are those who also want to remove the very situation of poverty. And if you consult wisdom, that is an impossibility. The very material world that we live in, this Earth planet, is within an environment where strife and lack are ingrained and they're hardwired to the system. So wisdom would say to allow someone the possibility of becoming satisfied is real empowerment. So satisfaction on one level is an emotion. Do you feel satisfied? And on another level, satisfaction is a decision where you understand where you are and what's going on, and you decide to work with what you have. In the current world we're in, is that the idea of success and being free from poverty, meaning financial, is always being, like the carrot is being dangled in front of everyone's face. That even the billionaire is not feeling satisfied. He still feels that I should get a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I would say that to empower people to understand where they are, to understand what things constitute a deeper sense of meaning and purpose, it will help people to be able to cope wherever they are with their desires. Because what's happening is that it's our desires that are hounding us, that are harassing us. And it's like if you're putting fuel into a fire, it will never be extinguished. So we need to also empower people to understand there won't be a situation of feeling that I've done enough as long as I've not gone within. And so the school of religion, the school of spirituality, is now informing you and I. This world is a station, it is not the destination. And when we try to make it the destination, then we will be robbed.
Yeah.
Yes. How train is there and you're trying to put your posters and put your chair there. No. You get on the train to go somewhere. You don't try to sit there and make it your home.
I made the comment earlier on to say that equality, expressed equality, in my opinion, is a misnomer. We can strive to bringing to our society, to our communities, the opportunity, the equal opportunity to achieve whatever it is that you need to achieve at your level as an individual. Then maybe we can take that whole concept and make it a collective concept, right? But it appears to me that we are fixated, we are consumed by the need to standardize things. We want everybody to have the same house. And I was talking about the whole RDP concept and the whole four-room concept of yesteryear. We want everybody to have the same. And I want to argue that sometimes that's what religion wants to do. It wants to force down the minds of people the idea that we are the same, right? And therefore creates tenets and doctrines that are about standardizing the human experience. When in reality, the human experience, in fact, the experience, not just the human experience, the experience is not about equality in that sense. That it is about the equal opportunity of every being, sentient and otherwise, to be expressed to its fullest potential, right? To its unique fullest potential. So, The Rock doesn't necessarily want to get a doctorate. Right?
Yeah.
The Rock in the field is not necessarily wanting to get a doctorate from Wits, right? And so I'm not advocating for saying that give rocks and trees the opportunity to be Wits PhD graduates. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, however, that whatever is the most meaningful expression of rockhood, let the rock get it, man. You know what I'm trying to say? Whatever is the fullest expression of the individual who wants to get the PhD, go for it. Whatever is the fullest expression of the guy who wants to be able to make a cabinet in the most beautiful way, go for it. But I think that what we sometimes get fixated on is this desire for standardization, because behind that idea is that we are trying to create equality. And I'm suggesting that sometimes religion tries to create this standardization, this false idea of equality, that we are all equal, whereas spirituality, gotta stand up, whereas spirituality perhaps understands the differences in all beings, and gives the opportunity of all beings to fully express themselves, and understands that while the opportunity is available to all beings, we are not necessarily the same. The equality in that situation is the equality of the opportunity, but not necessarily the equality of the being themselves. Talk to me about that.
I would say that you are right in that observation. When someone speaks of being maybe religious or devout or involved in a religion, it may evoke such images as, yesteryear ideas, just doctrinal dogmas, and as you said, standardization. Come and just let's all do it the same way.
And if you don't do it like us, then you're going to hell.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's where it has frustrated most people, because it has been used as a sort of divide and conquer tool. That if you want to create an industry, like we have, for example, the Premier League, then it's a love of soccer that you want to exploit. That's the market. But then you create, 20 teams to come and play. And so all those 20 teams can sell the experience of soccer to different groups of people. In that way, the love of soccer, which is the common thread amongst these people, is then sort of stomped over by the team that I support, the colors, the t-shirts, the songs that we sing. And then at the end, even when we have to follow the rules of the game, because without the rules, there is no game. So religion also comes with its rules and regulations, because there are ways of being in that sort of camp. At the end, people are willing to kill each other, to fight each other. We see that hooliganism, for example, in soccer, where it's no longer that the other guys, they really played beautiful football. Those 3 goals they scored were really fantastic display of soccer. It is that it was scored by the guys in black and white when I'm in the red and so in that sense, I would say the equality of all beings is a fact at the level of the soul, the spirit. We are all conscious living beings, but the context from which we are viewing the game of life is different, because we have walked on this journey of awareness to different degrees. So in religion, when you say that the experience of divinity will be the same, this is where it becomes faulty, because individuals, according to the classes they wear, they're going to see the world and experience it accordingly. So we cannot standardize the experience of divinity, because divinity is encompassing all reality, and we're getting glimpses of it from wherever we are.
And that does not necessarily mean that we can't find spiritual meaning in our tenets, in our devout behavior, in our disciplines. It doesn't mean that those disciplines, those devotional acts, those tenets, those doctrines that we may follow in this standardized place called religion, it doesn't mean that there is no spirituality there. That very act can itself be very spiritual. That's why I said to you last week that I've watched so many different groups. I love to watch the ZCC folks. Papa. I love to watch the churches, the churches the Zion, when they do Iskalanga. You know Iskalanga? When they yes, yeah, beautiful stuff. I mean, that whole moment. I watch Pentecostal people when they're in deep prayer. I watch my Muslim brothers when they are devoted. Those are all religious acts, right? Where people are finding powerful spiritual expression in those kinds of things. What I tend to worry about, though, is the idea that if you don't do it this way, therefore you are not a partaker of the spiritual meaning that is available to us as human beings.
Yeah, that's very criminal, because individuals would not go through all these rigors, all these rituals, all these repetitions, recitations, year after year, if there wasn't some substance that they were getting. We cannot sit and understand fully the motives of people from within, but then to then say that certain spiritual or religious practices have a monopoly on the spiritual experience, I find that very criminal. I had a conversation with a young man just 2 weeks ago, and very devout in his faith. And I wanted us to get to a point where let's speak the truth. I said, I can value your devotion and your religion, and I can agree with many things that you do. But I have a problem that if I agree with you, you tend to think if you accept me in one way, you have to accept everything. And if you say you also accept divinity as I do, then it can't be true, because I express and I speak of divinity in this way and you don't. And I was saying that the unlimited supreme person, how can they be limited to one form of understanding and sort of connection? There's unlimited ways that the unlimited person can be experienced.
I want to take some calls on 1-883-0702. Somebody says the cave that you fear holds the treasure that you seek. If you are not failing at something, you are not even trying. We all have different talents and gifts. Get wisdom, get understanding. And that's Pete Musia Mutubats. Lucky in Pretoria says, Aubrey, the concept of religion is very broad and does not imply Christianity. Christianity is just one part of it, and there are many others. Religion is just what an individual thinks is the best way to connect to spirituality, whatever it is that the individual believes in. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Somebody says, Monk's Buddha. Wow, what a spirit. It says, let the rock rock. Abuti Aubrey, your gold king. Oh, thank you so much. Much appreciated. 011-883-0702. We're having a conversation. It's part 2 of my conversation with Xavier the monk about spirituality and religion. I think we are moving closer to an understanding that there's nothing wrong with devotion. There's nothing wrong with discipline. There's nothing wrong with religion, fundamentally. Perhaps what is wrong sometimes with religion is the idea that my religion is better than yours.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. And it's not to take away from people becoming very proud of their devotion and ways of being in that space.
Yeah.
But to put down another, having not stepped in their shoes. Like I'm practicing my spiritual path of bhakti, say 20 years now. And then sometimes I meet even young guys, young girls, who come and say that what you're doing is evil. Yeah, that you're going to hell. And I think, hold on. I am also sentient being like you. I have a brain that works. You think I'm such a fool that I would take such austerities in purifying my consciousness just blindly?
To go to hell.
Yeah, it's and then there's that joke that comes sometimes that, you know, one person died, went to heaven or paradise, and when they got there, they were happy. Oh, I made it. They saw some few people. Then they saw this very high wall, and there were signs there like, "Be quiet." So everyone was like, "Shh, don't make too much noise." So what's wrong? I said, "Hey, on the other side of the wall, it's those people who think they're the only ones that made it. So we don't want to break their illusion."
011-883-0702. Yelang is in Ferndale. Hi, Yelang. Yeah. Yelang in Ferndale, much appreciated. Spuda?
Thank you, Ilang, for your contribution. Yes, I would like to introduce at this point that, you know, since everyone has their subjective experience, it would be better for humanity to consider how much transformation, how much am I acquiring whatever goals of evolution in consciousness by applying the path that I'm in. Meaning, let us see how much advancement we are making. Are we becoming humble? Are we becoming tolerant, merciful, giving, forgiving? Let us not try to judge if people are practicing as I do, because as you're rightly stating, we're individuals. But we can see this path is good for me because it has moved me from point A to point B, and I'm getting closer to whatever goal that I aspire for in my practice. I think that's a much more progressive way of rating if your path is good or the best. It's the best for me. For me to come and say it will be the best for you, I'd rather propose that try this technique, try these formulas, try these rituals, and then you can then say how much they work for you.
Why, though, is there such a powerful seduction by mantras, by statements of absolute unequivocation, right? That say, I am right because God said so, right? I am right. Because I'm doing the will of God as He has said it to me. And you are wrong by even suggesting the idea of this ecumenical approach to things. That, we all have different paths. That there's only one path. And that's the path that I have been informed of by God. I can prove it. How? Look at it. It's in my scripture. I can see it. There it is. You can read my scripture too. Now, I know that we could argue and say, yes, sure, I hear you, my brother, but that's your scripture and it's good for you and no problem. That's what. But why is it so easy for us that we've been seduced by this dogmatic approach and we find comfort and security in the idea that everybody else are wrong and I'm right? Why is that so attractive?
Well, it's attractive at an undeveloped stage, when one is still a little crude on the path of refinement and developing higher consciousness. Like the children. It's not wrong for the child to think that my father is the toughest guy in the block. My father's gun is bigger than your father's gun. Children tend to do that. But as children mature, they get to see that others are also fathers, others' fathers are doing well in so many other areas than their own father. So it comes from
an level of immaturity, is it?
It's an immaturity. It's an immaturity because if we are saying that God is the central point of our argument, is that He is right. Yes, God is right. But if I look at myself, I should have the wisdom to see where I lack. And I should aspire to rise. But this idea that I am the best, I am right, everyone's wrong, it's a bit childish.
Yeah. Well, number 1-883-0702, do you realize, though, that that is partly the reason why there is so much strife? This idea that I am right because I can prove that I'm right because so and so said so.
Yeah. Pull out your books and let us understand even the scriptures within the context of the path of love. Everyone has a pull from the heart to connect. Even the word religion comes from the Latin religare, to connect again. So that pull to connect with especially a higher power that can protect nature, give us love, is there within all. So I can only judge how much I've connected. And the scriptures are just giving us ways by which we can be regulated so that we can grow. Like the education system, how many years do we waste in preschool, primary, high school, university, just to again go and learn how to do the job? So before maturity, there's all these rules and regulations prescribed for people according to how they're going to be attracted and receive whatever message. So if we look at the different scriptures, we'll find actually there is a theme that is almost word for word similar. Everyone is saying, compassion, tolerance, forgiveness, service, love. These are religious principles and they cut through, they're universal. So the principles of religion are not a monopoly of any religious school.
So I've had conversations here on this platform and elsewhere about the concept of Ubuntu. Ubuntu. Humanity. And I'm choosing that deliberately because there's others that we could choose. Part of the problem, Spuda, is that sometimes because of our lack of exposure, and we hear something for the first time, and we think that it's been said for the first time. You know what I mean? That sometimes, because I hear something for the first time, Aubrey, hear something for the first time, I think, whoa! It's the first time that thing has ever been said, right? I mean, you know the conversation around so-and-so discovered the Nile. And then somebody says, dude, but how could you have discovered the Nile? There were people there already.
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of going to Uganda a few years ago, where the Nile actually begins. You can literally see how it starts at what is now commonly known as Lake Victoria. You can literally see this is where it starts, right? And the person that I was with explained to say that for many years we were told that somebody else discovered this. And we were like, but how could somebody else have discovered this? Because there were people here. Yeah. So sometimes we get caught up in that kind of dissonance, that we think that because it's the first time we've heard of a particular principle that is carried by a particular quote or a particular saying or a particular religious group, we think that that's the first time that thing has ever been said, and we begin to realize that, oh, this thing has been around for far longer. I want to make another example before I make my point. I realized that the swastika, the swastika was there way thousands of years before the Nazis used it. And that the swastika, in its original meaning, is completely and diametrically opposed to what the Nazis made it mean later on. Now, for somebody who understands the original meaning of that symbol, the swastika, the original meaning, and uses it in those terms, for somebody who only knows the meaning of that symbol in its Nazi context, may be seen to be an enemy of the people, right?
Yes.
You see what I'm trying to say? Now let's talk a little bit about the issue of Ubuntu. I've seen how Ubuntu has been made a religious concept. Almost to say that Ubuntu, there's no other thing, you can't have Ubuntu other than on this continent. And I've said, but I've seen Ubuntu in China. I've seen Ubuntu in South America. But then there are those that have wanted to annex and to put a fence around the idea of Ubuntu and say that it is only African. And I suppose that's where the conversation around religion and spirituality goes to. That maybe if we start to think about it as Ubuntu, that Ubuntu is to be found amongst all humanity. All humanity. Yes, here in South Africa, Southern Africa, we will call it Botu, Ubuntu, right? But maybe in South America, somewhere in the jungle, somewhere, it's called something else, but the same thing.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, that means that we should understand that also in linguistics and language, even the meaning of words evolve. I'll start it from there. In that, in the modern context, for example, religion, we mentioned the imagery that it may conjure up in someone's mind when you say religion.
Yeah.
There will be like the descriptive current way in which people understand the term. But if you go to the prescriptive form of the word, then we understand, as I mentioned, religare, that which connects. And if you go into the Sanskrit language, you find connection is yoga, from the root huge. And if we trace the principles of original meaning, then we can see how a principle can be universal and applied differently in different contexts.
Yeah.
So now, even the idea of Ubuntu, because of the capitalistic mood we're in, is that people...
Ownership.
Yeah, we want to take it, own it, patent it, and then profit from it.
Own the IP.
Yeah. Yeah. So then now what we do, instead of understanding that we're dealing with Ubuntu, being human, displaying innate qualities of an evolved human being, we cut out so many chunks of other humans because they don't use the same vocab or they don't use the same language that we do. But those who are evolved will be able, for example, the dog, Aubrey, can recognize its master, whether he comes in a suit or is wearing pajamas or is in spandex. The dog knows his master. So also one who's developed can understand the principles that govern these, you could say, schools of education, whether it's called Ubuntu, whether it's called Taoism, it's called Shembe, it's called Krishna consciousness. One looks for the substance instead of the form of presentation. If you look for the substance...
Go down to the dog, thou sluggard! Learn their ways and be wise!
He comes to a place and he sees the same divinity that I revere and follow. These people are revering and learning from in a different way. And so can be patient to even say tolerate their ways, knowing that essentially they want that connection. So education is very paramount to break down these artificial divisions.
But education, not just mundane.
Yes, dogma
and dogma.
Yes.
Because I mean, you talk about, for example, the issue of terminology in its prescriptive and its descriptive form, right? If I think I'm educated because I think that swastika means Nazi, then how educated really am I? Yeah. So simply knowing the prescriptive term or prescriptive meaning of a particular term does not necessarily mean that you understand the descriptive meaning of a term. So when you speak of education, it means that we've got to have knowledge of all the polarities of that particular issue, right?
Look at any division of education. As you go up, then there's research, and you have to cite so many sources to show different perspectives on a point. So this threadbare study of what is available on planet Earth with regards to the subject of consciousness development, of connecting to divinity, of rising above our animalistic passions. Yes, give that information to the seekers. Let's not corner each other based on one particular book or type of syllabus and then conclude that that is all. Like this example of the swastika. In the Vedic community, that is the symbol of the chakra, which is a divine weapon of Vishnu or Krishna, and it symbolizes peace. Om Swastik, Om, and
that concept is thousands of years.
Yes, into the millions.
Yeah,
actually, will be millions of years old.
Right.
So Hitler, going into study, picks up something. He has a project that he wants to raise his own Aryan race. Aryans in this Vedic civilization is those people who know the essence of life. So to make
he perverts that whole sacred understanding for a very narrow idea of supremacy, white supremacy, taking and stealing a concept that is about the progression of humanity as we move deeper into our divinity, right?
Yes. And then now the legacy.
Oh, the theft of it all.
The legacy of the swastika now, to those who don't get the opportunity to go deeper into that, is just a symbol of hate. It's a symbol of hate. And he actually spun it around.
011-883-0702. My guest, I nearly said DJ Spoo. He's a good brother of mine, by the way. I want you to be part of this conversation and begin to see how important this is in the project of the humanization of South Africa. How we were so well insulated from each other because of this idea that there is only one way, and that is my way. And perhaps we could learn the secrets of the dog. Yeah? Sura Guru! The secrets of the dog, the ability that the dog has to be able to see essence. That the dog is able to go beyond form and see essence. That is the fundamental meaning of the word sawubona, isn't it?
Oh, siyabona. And plural also.
Yes. The fundamental power behind sawubona means that siyakubona, we and I see you. Talk to me about the plurality of it.
And sometimes go to a sanbona.
Sanbona. Yeah.
Or sanbona.
Yes.
So that also is the language is actually taking us to the depth of the understanding that what I see is not just the
form.
External form, but I see also the divinity within you. This is the act of even folding hands. Yes, and people think that it may be human worship, but no, it is to acknowledge that also within you there's divinity.
Oh, I watch the vendor people, how they will put their hands together when they greet somebody. They'll say, onda. And that's what you're referring to?
Yes, that umuntu akahambi yedwa. We are not alone. In one sense, we are representing our forebears. In another sense, we're representing the different sages who've given wisdom. In another sense, we are seated as in a machine which is being controlled at a higher level. The body is like, is being puppeted by the modes of nature. And the soul is seated on this machine. All he has is desire. And that desire is being fulfilled by the all-powerful desire of the Supreme. So, sanbonani or sawubona is to acknowledge not just you, but also those that you are with.
And now, if I'm looking at the Vavenda and the way that they fold their hands in respectful greeting, and then I go to China or Japan and I see how they bow. Huh? And then I go perhaps to Arabia and I see how they'll genuflect and with that wave with their hands. And I go to the West and I see somebody shake somebody's hand. If I insist that the only way, if I insist that the only way to recognize the divinity in the other is to bow, then I discount the way that the Vavenda do it. Or I discount the way that the Arab does it. Or I discount the way... And that is the problem that I have sometimes with the discipline and the devotion of religion. That it says, my way or the highway.
It should be seen as, in a vase. There are so many flowers and they have different colors and textures and shapes. And so when there's a variety of flowers in a vase, then it enhances the beauty of all these flowers, that variety. So that variety has to be celebrated in that it gives a better decoration. So we are trying to offer all these individuals to the Supreme Person. And so all that uniqueness becomes an offering. Because who wants the same old preparation every day? If we are not satisfied with the same old, why do we think the Supreme is only being pleased by one way of expression?
The cosmic boredom.
Kabana.
It would be intergalactic. Let me end off by telling you a story. Smoother. I, for many years, followed a path of a great man, a prophet, who was the spokesperson of a faith that was steeped in Western expression. And at a certain point, he was understood to be a spokesperson of anti-African expression of divinity. One day, many decades ago, he comes to the African continent, to a place around about Mozambique. And his companion says, oh, look at these savages, how they do the things that they do. And he's quiet, doesn't say anything. And he gets to a village, and at that village, the head of the village is sick. And they were passing by, and he's asked to come in and pray for the villager, the headman of the village. He goes and he prays for the headman of the villager. And the headman of the villager, and they move on with their trip. They go on to wherever they were going. He comes back after wherever they'd been and finds the people dancing. Dance that went on the whole night because the villager had been healed of whatever the ailment was. He gets out of the car and he joins in the dance. And he's dancing around the fire, and his companion says, how can you be participating in the rituals of the savages? He turns around and he says, the same power and intelligence that you say is able to heal people is the same power and intelligence that's operating amongst these people. And these people are dancing in appreciation of the expression of that power. Now, whether they do it by beating drums into the late hours of the night, or they have a devotional service in a particular church, whatever, doesn't really matter. It is the expression of the power of healing that they are acknowledging in their midst. And for that reason, I join them in the dance because I understand what it is that they are celebrating. Isn't that spirituality?
Yes, in essence. In essence, it is. Spirituality is like the sun has risen in the day. All darkness and ignorance goes away. Where we think that there's things that are outside of the power and the view of divinity. It's most inclusive and most accommodating, but also it is founded on progressive growth. Therefore, there are disciplines, there are signposts, there are methods, techniques to see that the theories that the books are giving are being applied. And therefore, the transformation of consciousness is taking place. So it has to be an applied spiritual science.
I want to listen to a voice note. Go ahead, Joe.
What was the name of divinity? Was it nameless before humanity was there? Divinity is eternally existing and has innumerable names. Some of them are describing the qualities, some are describing the activities, some are describing the form, some are in relation with the relationship divinity has with certain individuals. So just like you cannot count the waves in the ocean, you cannot count the names of the divine person. We have names which are famous to us in the different major schools: Krishna, Jehovah, Jah, Modimo, Tiko, Chikwembu, Mungu, so many in our own languages or older languages. But divinity being eternal is the original person, always possessing the most glorious names, which are substantial and are as potent as the individual himself. There is no difference between the name and the named when it comes to divinity. We use divinity to include everyone. Because as soon as I say Mvelingandi, then someone else who doesn't use that name for divinity starts to feel left out or may want to disagree. But when we talk about divinity as the source of all, and who is an unlimited, omnipotent person, then everyone is
So
involved.
Arnau has kindly asked me to pronounce the Vavenda in the right way. You know, I've been told so many times, different people say, no, you're not pronouncing it right when you say Bavenda. Some will say, no, it's Vavenda. And then some will say, no. So Ariano says, no, Vavenda is pronounced Bavenda, not Vavenda. No problem, Ariano. Arnau, no problem, my brother. Let's not fight about that. If it's better for you that I say Bavenda, I'm happy to do that. I know somebody's going to write to me and say, no, it's actually Bavenda. No problem, I'm happy to do that. And it goes to the issue of what was the first name of something.
Yes. Because then now someone has some sort of IP
Control.
on that.
Yes. Koros Buddha, it's been a great time talking to you as always. Yeah. Are you going to play some audio? Oh, all right. You want to play some audio?
Xavier the Monk, Siabonga, thank you.
All right. Somebody wants to play. Do you want to play this thing? Oh, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Xavier the Monk, always great talking to you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you and having these discussions sometime soon again.
Thank you, Aubrey.